and then I invite them to like private match and like do your kickoff against me, and then I bully their kickoff. So like, it's just one of those funny like little things where people get fun of their strategies in this game. Now, with that being said, what do you work on at Diamond? What you need to work on at Diamond is just getting good at one thing, right? That's it. Get good at one thing. If you're still like really good at shooting the ball, keep shooting the ball, and you shoot the ball every chance you get, right? If you're somebody who loves to demo, use your demos. You know, people get tilted when they get demoed. Rocket League is a contact, game, full contact esport. So like, if you're tilting people off demos and they're forfeiting, great, keep doing it, right? If you're somebody who's quote unquote a ball chaser and you play really aggressive and you don't get off the ball, and that's working for you, do it. Right? These are the ranks where you can really establish what your starting like play style is like. Okay, if you're somebody who sits and parks behind the ball and you love faking players and they go, like you just got to get so good at it that there's you ranks. That's truly what I recommend because this is one of the ranks where it's easy to get out of. It should be easy to get out of, and if it's not, it's because you're probably overthinking it, right? And most of the time when I see Diamond players, they're hating on their teammates, right? I'd say this is one of the first ranks where play styles will clash, okay? Because you'll have the players that got really good at game sense, but they suck at mechanics, and then they'll get a teammate that is really good at mechanics but sucks at game sense, right? That's how Diamond games are. So it's basically like everyone's kind of getting a better idea of like what's actually going on this field, but like no one really knows. We're just doing what we want to do. And obviously that's a really good way to summarize like Rocket League ranked in general. But anyway, moving on, we go to Champ next. Champ is the first true test rank where players will either be hard stuck for years or they push into the top ranks, which is like GCSSL, right? So this is where players will clash the most, right? They start to clash in Diamond, maybe not as much, but Champ is really where it becomes very, very sloppy. It becomes very, very sloppy. Why? Because no one knows how to adapt to each other whatsoever. No one knows. They're like, oh, I got a really passive teammate on my team. He doesn't want to go for the ball. I don't know what I'm supposed to do if he doesn't want to go for the ball. Right? That's like always what you'll hear. How about you do something that makes it advantageous for him to go for the ball? Every time I give that concept to my students that I'm coaching, they're like, wow, I never thought of that. Right? This is the rank where you should be learning how to enable your teammate. Work together with your teammate and enable your teammate. Especially now that teams is the most like game mode in this game. It's a team game mode. If you are getting scored on there, you are on a losing streak. You are part of the problem. Accept that. That is factual. It's factual. So like until you can get that through your head, you won't get through champ. Right? Now, this is where I could probably like categorize the ranks a little bit. Champ one is like players who are getting just a little bit more consistent at their mechanics. Right? They might be scoring a clip every 1 in 3 games. Right? You might have people that can air dribble really well. You might have people that can reset really well. You might have people that can, do fakes really well. Or dribble really well. There's so many different things. And then you have players that are like getting a little bit smarter with their game sense, right? They start incorporating like really good pass plays and they start to take really good 50s, or it's the complete opposite. They take the worst 50s in the world, they can't pass the ball, they can't shoot straight, they can't use their boost right, and they're just messy overall. It's the biggest inconsistent rank in the game. Okay? So it's this is the rank where I feel like the two things you need to learn are how to work around a teammate, right? How to adapt to what is on your team. Stop worrying about the other team and how they're playing, because that's also a big red flag for me in terms of when I coach champ players or like when I see champ players play the game. They're constantly complaining about how their opponents are playing. Well, you never get off the ball. Like, dude, it's the number one like Rocket League uh, stereotype I'd say is like players that complain about ball chasers. If you are this is the ultimate. I'm gonna hit you with the reality of what this is. Okay, Rocket League in its basic form. Okay, if you were to really just describe to somebody who has no idea what Rocket League is, you drag a car around and you chase a ball. That's what it is. That's actually what this game is. So for those of you that sit there and complain about people who ball chase, they're just playing the game. They're literally just playing the game. So like, how about instead of you sitting there complaining about them ball chasing, you do something to prevent them and give them a reason to stop ball chasing. Take a really good 50, have him over it, and then tap it into his net. Right? Force the player to learn that ball chasing is not always a good thing to do. Right? Take his boost. There are things you can do to limit him, demo him. There's so many different things you can do to limit. Work together with your teammate, right? Get a 2v1 isolation going. This is where you can start applying game sense, right? Like to a good, decent level. You know, take the outplays when you have them. Don't play the ball into them. Don't let them ball chase, right? Keep possession of the ball for yourself. If you're one of those players that likes to park and camp behind the ball, you're not going to be able to do that if they're going full speed all the time and they're throwing themselves like an animal at the ball. I'm talking to all my Champ 2s out there right now, okay? So, Champ 1 is like one of those ranks where it's like, players are like somewhat okay, but they're like feeling out how Champ's going to be. And then Champ 2 is where everything goes out the window. Okay, Champ 2 is like the most chaotic rank that players will ever see. Like, I don't know what's going on, I don't know this, I don't know that. Champ 2, how you get out of Champ 2? Control the ball. That's it. Control the ball and manipulate the play. Control the ball, control the boost, control the resource. Right? Limit what players are actually capable of. You might have a player in your lobby that's demo chasing nonstop, or he's like, that's what he did to get to that rank. You guys don't look at the game like that. I don't understand why players can't do that. Everyone underneath SSL is still learning the game. You're all the same. You're all the same. You all still learning the game. So what one player's playstyle is what that player did, and what was successful for that player to get to that rank. So instead of sitting there and talking trash to each other, understand how to play around each other. If your teammate's somebody who goes for demos and is demo chasing nonstop, okay, then capitalize on the space that he creates when he demos a player. Okay, there's so many players like that. If your teammate's way too passive, then you got to make an advantageous situation where it's, there's no reason for him to not go. And they still, like, even though you can create the situations, players will still not go. They're too scared, right? They see certain things that they want to see because the game's all pattern recognition, right? So until you give them what they want to see, you have to test that out, right? If you have to leave the ball on the goal line, I talk about this again in my videos like all the time. If your teammate's boosted, if your teammate's bad at the game, if your teammate's a bronze player and he's boosted, right? What's the easiest thing you can do for that player? Leave the ball on an open net with no defenders in the way, right? Or maybe one defender in the way, and you just pray. You pray that they score it, right? Like, and they'll find a way to miss. Why? Because even SSL players will find a way to miss that. Like, we're all humans, bro. So, back to my point of like, you really need to learn how to adapt to each other in this rank, and you need to learn how to punish players in this rank, right? This is the counter strategy rank, is what I call it. If you have somebody who's really good at mechanics, but they're dumb in the game sense department, then you got to counter with game sense. If it's vice versa, right? And they're really good at game sense, punish them with mechanics. You got to learn how to do that kind of stuff, and then also mix matching with your teammate, right? So that's the key to getting out of champ. And the players that can do that, like I'll never understand the players who complain in champ and they're like, I've been hard stuck here for 4 years and it's my teammates. Like, bro, like listen to yourself. You are hard stuck there for 4 years. 4 years. You didn't play with the exact same person. If you played with the exact same person, that's even worse. Then you both should know that you're doing something wrong. But like, if you're solo queuing and you've been hard stuck in champ for years, brother, like that is something you need to fix, not anybody else. You are the problem. You are what's keeping yourself there. So this is the game where I think players will really start to study the game. They'll want to learn. Some players will go look for coaching. Some players will watch hella YouTube videos or start watching pro gameplay. Some players don't watch anything, and they'll sit there and they complain. So yeah, this is the counter strategy rank, right? Learning how to adapt to each other, learning how to play against your opponents, what works against these opponents, what doesn't, right? And even then, people can get to champ just spamming one thing or the other. Like, people can get to grand champ spamming one thing or the other. So it doesn't really matter. These are still learning ranks, so I'm not going to categorize them like one by one. Champ 3 is going to be the same. Of like, they're so close to grand champ, and grand champ is a big accomplishment and milestone in people's like Rocket League careers. So they play a little different. They play a little weird. Or they might play a little safer. You never know. So I think people don't think about the psychological things of like why people play the way that they do, right? Anyway, back to what I was getting towards. We move on to Grand Champ. Grand Champ is the biggest hurdle in the game. So your climb from Grand Champ to SSL is the biggest climb in the game. Why? Because it's equally as long as it took you to climb from Diamond. It's equally, if not more, the same length it took you to climb from Diamond to Grand Champ, it will take you to climb from Grand Champ to SSL. That's just how the game is. And obviously, there's going to be talented players that just clean through Grand Champ. They get really good. They ask help from higher level players. They get help, and they learn quickly, right? There's always going to be players like that that are talented. So that's just not the case for everybody. Now, how I would describe these ranks, okay? GC1 is just the same thing as Champ 3. I've been in these ranks forever. Like, I've been like past those ranks forever ago. So it's like in my head, because we have to play them every season. Okay? SSL players, doesn't matter what Elo range you are in SSL, get reset to 1660 every season in 2v2. Meaning that's GC2. So you get a mix of GC1 players who picked GC2 last season. You get players that are GC2 and they're returning GC2. You get players who are GC3 and got reset to GC2. And then you get SSL players who were SSL or higher and got reset to GC2. So it becomes the most mixed jelly bean bag rank in the entire game. And most people will never get out of it because of why. It's the comp clip hitter rank. So GC1 is like, GC1's like the start. Like the champs are like leaking into Grand Champ and they're like, damn, they're getting destroyed by GC2 players who are like really consistent mechanically and they don't know what to do, right? So GC2 is like the funniest rank because I call it the comp clip hitter rank, right? It's the most inefficient rank in the game. It's a mix of like Champ 2, like non-stop, always on the ball chase, but then also like that non-stop aggression because players want to improve. They want to do max on a high level of speed and most of their stuff. So it becomes like the sloppiest rank in the game, right? People kind of like strip out the game sense and they just want to like flex their max. And so the best way to get out GC2 is you punish. You learn how to punish players for spamming max. Right? GC1 is like if you're GC1, you want to learn how to get to GC2. Usually the answer is you got to up your mech skill. Like I'm not gonna lie, you need a decent level of mechanical skill to consistently outplay GC2. Okay? Now, in GC3 is the weirdest rank in the game. It's my most hated rank in the game, if I'm being honest, because I have to play it every single season. And it's players who have never been SSL, right? And they're trying to get SSL, but they don't understand quite what it takes to get SSL. You get GC2s who might be like end of season inflation, so they're inefficient. They bring up their inefficiencies into GC3, and then you have players that are really really good, but they're super inconsistent. Right? They make really good decisions, they do really good mechanics, and then the next half of the game, they're missing an action. So there's stuff like that, right? And there's people who just straight up just go saw and come forward, like they don't belong there, which typically those are the players who are there for the first time. And then you'll obviously have the SSL players who know what they're doing, right? They have a good idea of what they're doing, but even then, like, dude, I've been seeing the newer SSL players, like anyone with the season 20 plus SSL tag, dude, even like season 7, I had a season of 17 SSL tag, like briefing my game and talking trash like the other day. Insane. It's insane stuff. So this is one of the most toxic races in the game because players are trying to get to the top rank, right? And players establish an ego in their Grand Champ. I've seen GC3 players talking smack to like pro players, bro. It doesn't matter if you're Zen, it doesn't matter if you're a world champion, like these players will talk trash. It's absolutely fucking diabolical, bro. Like I try not to cuss in my videos, but it is actually fucking diabolical. Like the GC3 is my favorite worst rank in the game. Now, if I'm gonna talk about how to get out of GC3, the Grand Champ ranks in reality, all three of them should be working on refinement. How do you refine your game to SSL? So SSL, by the way, just because you guys are probably waiting for what I'm going to say, SSL is the bare minimum and the beginning to what Rocket League can be. Okay, for if you're trying to be a competitive player, SSL is the bare minimum if you're trying to be a competitive LCS player. Okay, now if you're trying to just do the rank ladder, so let's continue down the rank ladder route. SSL is the top rank in the game. Okay? But there are levels to SSL. Okay, so if you're trying to get to SSL from Grand Champ, you need to refine your game. what is missing from your game that SSL players do? And usually the answer to that is the consistency and the efficiency. So it's like, how do you refine those skills in those ranks? Well, you gotta learn when and where to use your ranks, how to use your ranks. What situations do you create with your mechanics? Or are you somebody who's only trying to score with your mechanics? And you leave your teammate 2v1 every single time you get scored. Right? There's stuff like that. There's game sensitive things of like when and where to go for demos. How to create an advantageous situation with defense, how to clear out of pressure, like start to learn game sensitive things that you didn't have to really use to the high level in those games before. Because if you don't, every single season when the SSL players get reset into EC2 and you're sitting there and you're one of those players that complains about losing to SSL players or getting screwed by SSL players, it doesn't make any sense. Those are the players you should be trying to beat consistently. That is how you should be viewing the game. I will never understand when players like play against Smurfs, like maybe a rank or two above them, and they complain. Why is it fair that I have to play a Smurf? If you really want to get the rank up, and you really want to improve this game, and get to a high level, that should be motivation for you. You should be saving that replay, and watching that Smurf, and figuring out what that Smurf did to beat you so bad. Why is that Smurf so much better than you? If that's the rank that you're trying to get to, then why would you complain about it? It's the exact same thing with the Grand Champ players who complain about SSL players being unbalanced. It's like, well, how am I supposed to get to SSL if all I play is 2K SSLs or like SSL players? How somebody in my server said it like the other day. It's like, how can I be the only one that's not hit SSL in these lobbies? Brother, if you want to get SSL, you should be happy that you're playing against SSL players already without being SSL. Right? You get that chance. If you want to get to that rank, you have to be able to beat these players consistently. Why? Because that's the only thing that's trackable in this game. Can you beat these players consistently and can you hold the rank? Right? It's not can you hit the rank one time and then drop out before you get rewards for it. That's why Rocket League's designed that way. You have to win 10 games in that rank. 10 games. That means you deserve it. You deserve that rank. Okay? So, like, you need to refine your gameplay. What do the SSL players do that you don't do? Okay? Now we're going to get into the best part of the video, in my opinion. So SSL, for those of you that are unaware of the SSL hierarchy, I want to make a whole video on this, so I'm glad I got the opportunity to. SSL is the whole hierarchy, okay? From 1800, you separate it into ELO ranges, okay? So you have 1800 to 1900, okay? You have 1900 to 2K ELO, and then you have 2K ELO to 2200 ELO, and then you have 2200 ELO plus, or like 2400 ELO, which is like where the pros usually play. 2400 ELO plus. So you have people like Zen that are at 2800. That's literally like an SSL above an SSL. Like, I don't think players understand that. So why is it like that? It's like that because, first of all, I think there needs to be a new top rank in the game. I think there needs to be a premier mode in the game, and I think there needs to be a top 100 like thing in the game. Anyway, to my point, is because you can separate the comp and RLCS scene into layers as well. It doesn't stop. There are non-stop levels of the game. So how I'd separate the RLCS scene is you have like, your top 100 players. Okay, that's like, can you hit top 100? And that's usually like, again, a bare minimum prerequisite of if you can be an RLCS comp player. It's like, you should be consistently like top 100 in your region, right? There's like that. And then you have players like, you can separate it through, placements, okay? So you have players who you can place in top 128, so either top 128 or underneath top 128. Then you have players that are like somewhere in between top 128 and the next tier, which is like 90, 80, 70, 60, right? So you have the next rank, which is top 64, okay? Then you have the next rank above that, which is even, and you can tell from how slim it is, right? It's from top 128 to top 64, and then top 64 to top 32, right? So it gets smaller and smaller, and then top 32, top 16, and top 16 to top 8, and top 4. Okay, so the levels never stop in this game in terms of like learning and getting better and improving. So for those of you that are like, I want to hit SSL, like there's still levels to SSL. That's why I say SSL is like the bare minimum requirement of like, hey, I have a good idea of how to play the game. So, and you'll see it because I guarantee you, even the players who get clowned on, right, in like the top 128, and then, oh, you just have a challenge time, you have a lucky ticket, like majority of the time, even the top players have been SSL before. It's like the bare minimum requirement, if not GC3. Then usually, like, anyone top 64, I feel like you don't see anyone get top 64 who's not been SSL. In the SSL, like, egos are even crazier than the Grand Champ egos. It's like 2Ks, you go 18, 1900s. 2200s, you go 2K. And then 2400, you goes all of 2K. 2400 plus, you goes all of 2K. Right? Because that's just the levels of it. If the professionals are playing at 2400 plus at the bar, that's the professional rank. There needs to be another rank for that. Like, there just has to be. So, like, the levels don't stop. And that's why I tell players, like, I don't understand how players can have an ego. Like, I was a player that like wanted to stop learning, and I never had an ego. Like, especially at Grand Champ. You're still learning. At Grand Champion 3, you are nowhere close to the top of the game. If you're a GC1 or GC2 player, you're nowhere near the top. Absolutely nowhere near it. Right? If your goal is to just hit SSL one time, fair enough. Okay, you're close to your goal. But usually, I'll tell you right now, every SSL player I know is not like that. Everyone wants to still get better at SSL. So it's like at SSL you learn to put your ego aside, and it's the tiniest bits of improvement that you get. Is that what makes the difference? Because everyone is a master of like their rank at that point in time, right? Usually players have tens of thousands of hours playing the game at this point in time, and it gets even more crazy because like most of the pros that are in like top 8, top 4, top 12, top 16, like they have almost double digits, bro. I guarantee like someone like Squishy is around like 20K hours already. So I don't think players understand how much of the grind actually is in this game. And I really wanted to put that into perspective. I've not been top 16. I've not been top 32. Top 8. So I'm a top 64. The highest like placement I truly got was top 49. And that was only in an off-season RLCS qualifier. So it's not as difficult as a normal RLCS qualifier. So for me as a competitive player and having that competitive mindset, I look at the game now of like what separates me from top 16 players. And we play top 16 players all the time, right? Like we play them in quals, we play them in scrims, we play them in tournaments, like and there's still stuff you can learn about this game. So I feel like the biggest like takeaway from this video is understanding that all the ranks underneath SSL are still learning. Okay? So like you have to have that mindset when you approach like anything in this game. And that's gonna be your best catalyst to kind of propel you through each of these ranks, right? Like, if you maintain that mindset of like you're only able to just look at your own game, focus on your own gameplay. Don't care about your opponents. Don't care about your teammates, and focus on what you can do better. That's the best mindset you can have for the game, because you were still learning, right? Then once you get to SSL, then it's like it's basically what separates you from a pro player. That's it, right? What separates you from the echelons of this game? There's bubble, there's professional, there's top 12, top 8, top 16, and then you have top 4. People that are consistently winning tournaments against the best of the best. So, I don't know. If you're somebody who really wants to get into RLCS, man, like, you have to lock in that mindset. You cannot be toxic. You cannot have an ego. You can't, like, the amount of players that I've heard that just get, like, they don't get tryouts because they just have the worst behavior of ranked. Like, they're notorious for it. You see them all over Twitter, like, tweeting stuff. And then you have, like, higher level respected players that go in there and be like, your behavior is, like, terrible. Like, it's like, fix your behavior, bro. And some of these players, it's a shame because they can hit those higher, like, echelons and healer ranges of, like, 2400, 2500. Like, they hit those crazy, like, insane peaks that, like, the tiniest percentage of players will ever hit, ever in this game. And they waste those opportunities by